started. This week is education and training. Okay, and I think we even start off week 10, kind of throwing it back on you with some questions, because kind of talking about the final coming up and talking about the ending soon here of series 2. You guys have gone through all of series 1. You've now gone through 7 weeks of series 2. So you've gone through quite a bit of TBSU. Kind of want to start with you guys. The topic this week is education and training. Want to start with your guys' opinion. Why do you think education and training is important as you're providing TBS services? Or you can also answer the question if you'd like, how have you provided education and training with your clients in the past? If you'd like to unmute and share, that's great. Or if you'd rather put it in the chat, that is fine too. I'd like to hear from at least 3 or 4 of you on why it's important and how you have done it.
I can
I
go.
think a lot of times.
Oh, unless she's going.
Seneca, we'll hear from you in a second, but was it Henny? Henny, was it you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think a lot of times the residents, they don't understand a lot of the medical things that's going on with them. So that gives a lot of anxiety to them because
Sure.
they misunderstand. Or like one person says this and another person says something else, and then they don't understand like the whole picture. So it sounds like everybody is saying a different thing. And that is not always the case. Sometimes it's like the same picture, but everyone is talking about a different puzzle piece, right? And so when you put it all together, then they see the whole picture and they're like, oh, okay. And then you also help them that they can ask better questions,
Okay.
like what they don't understand, I think.
Okay. Wow. So you mentioned like 3 or 4 things in there. You mentioned like clarifying to get everybody on the same page. You mentioned providing education and just getting information. And then you also kind of mentioned like advocating, like helping them get their own information. So you mentioned like 3 or 4 different things that definitely go along with education and training. So you're doing a lot. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Seneca, what did you want to say?
She said a lot of what I was gonna say.
Okay, that's fine.
No, that's yeah. So I would just say like a way that I provide it, I've noticed like especially if somebody has a difficult time reading, obviously a lot of the older generation, their eyesight's kind of gone. Um, I'll, create like large print handouts,
Okay.
or if somebody's willing to, I always use YouTube as a good resource. I'll look up like what is depression, or like
Yeah.
what is anxiety, or what is schizophrenia, because I can explain it, but having someone who has taught it explains it better.
Okay.
So I just use a lot of videos.
That's great. Yeah, not only is that like accommodating their needs, but that is also sort of using a reputable source to kind of back up. Not only am I saying that this is what depression is, but here's a reputable source that is kind of backing it up. And it's also kind of being sensitive to any learning styles. Like maybe they just learn better from a video, and maybe they learn better from hearing it versus seeing it on a handout. So yeah, you're also accommodating their needs in a couple different ways and being sensitive to that. That's great. Awesome. We had a couple things in the chat. Don't want to get too far away from that. Um, Kirsten says she feels like it helps the client understand that they aren't the only ones that have mental health issues. Yep, helps normalize it. Helps them open up to you and be able to report to you in case they might not know um, who to report to how they're feeling. Okay, that's a great point. People come in and out of their rooms all day. People come in to give them food. People come in to clean their room. People come in and out for all reasons. Sometimes they don't know who to tell what to. So if you're a constant in their life, they may want to relay information to you because they know who you are. Samantha, they may not know about their diagnosis. You educate. Yes, yes. How often have you guys asked your clients or just discovered they don't know what their diagnosis is, or they don't know what it means. That's very common. Absolutely. Madeline does education and diagnosis, symptoms, medication, research, questions, and sessions. Excellent. Great. I'm so glad that hear that you guys are doing it. And I'm also glad to hear that you're doing it in ways that meet your clients' needs and are sensitive to what's going on with them. So I'm glad to hear that is going on out there. And thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Excellent. So you picked up something from series 1, or you were already doing it probably when series 1 was going on. That's great to hear. So again, this is probably a refresher, but it never hurts to refresh. But most adults, I would say, whether they have a developmental disability or not, or any kind of cognitive delay, I think we all enjoy learning something new. It's boring to do the same thing every day. It's boring to get into a rut or to get into a routine. It's exciting to learn something new. Developing new skills or improving existing skills can help people feel important, intelligent, can help lead to independence. But it does take, on your part, oftentimes patience, understanding, perseverance to go back a couple times. Seneca, maybe show a different video than you showed the last time to prove your point, or to come back with different materials to teach. So it takes some effort on your part for sure, to get your point across. Here's just some references and some resources that we're going to provide examples of today. You may use them, you may find them helpful, or you may have your own. And I hope through today we can learn from each other. If you don't find these helpful, please, by all means, give us some in the chat that you have found helpful, or give us examples through today of what you have found to be helpful. I hope that today is more of a learning from each other and sharing of resources. And these are just kind of to get you started. These are just like a jumping off point. Handout, I believe it's handout 8.1 is about setting boundaries. Did everybody get all of the handouts from Stacy? I believe there was 5. Okay, cool. So the first topic is about setting boundaries. We may provide education and training about setting boundaries. So we'll start with a little video and then we'll go into the handouts. So I will go ahead and play this. Let me know if for some reason you can't hear it.
Imagine you created a beautiful garden, but you notice people walking through the grass, littering, or even picking the flowers you've grown. So you put up a fence to mark what is your space, and you now decide who can come in through the gate. This is how we would protect our garden, and is also how we should protect ourselves, by setting boundaries. Boundaries are limits we set for ourselves within relationships, be they romantic, professional, friends, or family. You want to clearly see where you end and someone else begins.
I describe boundaries like a roadmap of me showing you how best to have a relationship with me. It is me clearly expressing and communicating my values and preferences because I want you in my life.
Some examples of boundaries are physical boundaries, what you are comfortable with in terms of your own space and your own body. Emotional boundaries, what you are comfortable with sharing and what you would like to keep private. And time boundaries, how you would like to prioritize your own time and where you would like to take time to rest.
An example of a request would be, please stop raising your voice. An example of a boundary would be, if you continue to raise your voice, I'm leaving. That would be me clearly expressing my thoughts and feelings, being aware of what I'm responsible for, and being aware that I don't need to explain my no.
Boundaries are something that everyone can benefit implementing in their life because they not only protect our time and energy, they also protect our relationships. They prevent miscommunication, misunderstandings, and built-up resentment. But what about when someone doesn't respect a boundary?
What's often difficult for people is what to do when somebody violates or oversteps a boundary. And if we use the earlier example that if somebody was to raise their voice at me, I am responsible for protecting myself. A lot of people fall into rescuing or fixing the other person, whereas that is up to me to protect myself. And if you continue to raise your voice at me, I leave.
If you feel like you need support, please contact your local mental health services.
Okay, so that's just an example of what might be a good intro. Seneca says she likes to show videos. Just one example, there's many. many videos out there, but I think that's a good overview. It's only 2 minutes, only 2 minutes long. Might be a good intro into using the Setting Boundaries worksheet. But again, if you remember in series 1, we talked a lot about learning styles. If the video isn't meshing with your client's learning style, if the handout isn't meshing with your client's learning style, if they're more hands-on. I know when I worked with kids, when I was teaching boundaries, I used to bring hula hoops. And if I was teaching physical boundaries, we used to walk around with the hula hoop to like physically hands-on sort of set, physical boundaries, or kind of like you see there, drawing with chalk outside. So you might need to get creative. You might need to ask questions first, or sort of play detective to figure out what your client's learning style is. Is it hands-on? Is it visual? Is it auditory? Is the worksheet okay before you go too far with teaching, setting boundaries? But we're going to go through the worksheet just to sort of get the idea of how to teach setting boundaries, and how you do it, how you implement it is sort of up to you and your client and their learning style. But the next couple slides, we'll go over handout 8.1 if this is a topic that is important to your client. But the Setting Boundaries worksheet will help you teach your client to set healthy boundaries by talking about language for speaking assertively. Several times throughout series 1 and 2, we have talked about assertive language. It'll give you boundary setting tips, kind of little scenarios, examples to practice these exercises. It'll give you a good outline for role playing. I know when I first started working with clients, I felt a little silly when it came to role playing, but once you do it, once you get into it, if you're into it, your client will be into it. So I'd recommend finding maybe a private place if you can. Maybe go to an activities room or go to a different room where you can get a little privacy and really get in to the role playing. That's really where the skills are practiced and where your clients can really see what it is that you're trying to teach them. So absolutely get the most out of practicing exercises. Encourage your client to treat the scenarios as if they were experiencing them. The more you're excited, the more you're into it, the more they are going to be into it. But use their words. Yes, we have these examples. We just kind of came up with them. They may not be realistic to their life. They may not be true to their life in a long-term care facility. So please feel free to just use them as a jumping off point and write your own scenarios, or even better, have your client write their own scenarios. Use their own language. What language would they use? Maybe they won't use the language that's on the handout. How would they state their boundary? What words would they use? How would they say it? What might be an actual scenario that they're setting a boundary about that might not be on the worksheet that I'm giving you. But give them the information. What even is a boundary? What are we even talking about? We have a definition here. Personal boundaries are the limits and rules kind of that we set for ourselves within relationships. They're simply the lines that we draw for ourselves in terms of our level of comfort around others. Kind of what will I tolerate? What will I not tolerate around myself? What am I okay with? What am I not okay with? And also, how will I communicate that? How will I say that? How will I make it known to those around me what I am okay with and what I am not okay with? We've talked about values multiple times in series 1 and series 2. Here come values again, because they are unique to each person. They are based on our values or things that are important to us. Unique from person to person, kind of define where one person ends and the next begins. So that's why they are unique from one person to the next. Your boundaries are yours and yours alone. Many of your boundaries might align with those that you're close to, but others may be unique. Also different from situation to situation. Helps to know what your values and your boundaries are kind of before you get into a situation. So you may want to have a values conversation before having a boundaries conversation. That may make sense to go in that order. So just a screenshot right from the handout of some tips of how to have your client be successful in setting boundaries. We talk about body language, how to feel confident based on what your body language is saying, face the other person, make eye contact, using a steady tone of voice. You can practice these things for sure. This is definitely a good part of the role play. Speaking at an appropriate volume, being respectful, avoid yelling. This may help if you write out a little role play ahead of time without using put downs, being firm, delivering your message in a respectful manner, planning ahead. Again, the role play. What do they want to say? Think about it ahead of time. How would they word it that can help them feel more confident again if they have a plan, and help them to be ready to compromise. They may not get everything they want. You know, relationships are always a give and take. So help them think ahead of time, what would I be willing to give up? How would I be willing to compromise? In what way might I be willing to negotiate? So here's a couple examples. Again, if these examples don't work for your client, maybe write some with them or base it off of conversations that you have had with them. A couple examples: you notice your roommate has been eating your food in the fridge. You never discussed any plans to share food. I don't want them eating what you bought. A way to set a boundary: stating clearly, I'd like to keep our food separate. If there's something of mine that you want, please ask me before taking it. Very clear. Situation: your friend calls you at 11 p.m. to discuss issues she's having with her boyfriend. You need to wake up at 6 a.m. Setting a boundary: I can tell you're upset. I want to talk to you, but I need to go to bed. Maybe we can talk tomorrow afternoon. Again, very clear, stating needs, what that person can expect from that person going forward. So let's practice. I'm going to need 4 volunteers. I'm going to need 2 people to read the situation, and then 2 volunteers to think of how they might set a clear boundary where they state what they need, and then they state what that person could expect going forward in the future. So any volunteers to read the first situation there on the screen?
I can read the first one.
Okay, go ahead.
You invited a friend over for the evening, but now it's getting late. You would like to get ready for bed, but your friend seems unaware of how late it is.
Any volunteers, how they may respond, setting a clear boundary. You want to go to bed? How would you set a boundary to get your friend to go home?
I've had to do that many times.
Okay, what do you,
Like,
Andrew,
you know,
teach
friends
us.
that wouldn't leave.
What do you say?
In that situation, I simply tell them, look, it's getting late. I have to get my rest for the next day. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
Okay. Very clear, assertive.
Yeah.
Respectful.
Firm.
Love it. Okay. Oh, we got something in the chat. Let me see if somebody wants to add something. All right. It was nice having you over, but time for me to go to bed. I have a long day ahead of me tomorrow. Okay. I like it. I think the only thing missing though is you did not specifically ask them to go home. Andrew did ask them to go home. That could still be misconstrued depending on the person's communication style, that they're going to go to bed, but they could still stay at your house depending on how they interpret things. But that's a good start. That's just missing one little piece there, but you're on the right track. All right, let's try the second one. Anybody want to volunteer to read the situation?
I'll read it.
Okay, thanks.
A good friend asks you on a date. You are not interested in being more than friends. You would like to let them down clearly but gently.
Okay. Any volunteers? You're not interested, and you need to communicate that. Either in the chat, or anybody want to unmute and share?
My supervisor is calling. Can I just answer quickly or not?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead. I know this one's a little tough because we don't want to hurt their feelings, but we're also not interested. Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate the offer, but I respect our friendship, and I'd like to just keep things where they are right now.
Okay, just want to stay friends. Okay. Would anybody say it a little differently? You can think about it. We'll give you a minute to think about it. Any additional answers? Okay. Okay. I think kind of the message or the point in the setting boundaries, being assertive is that clear is actually kind. And I really like that saying, that sometimes when you're not used to being assertive and when you're not used to being this direct and clear, it can feel like you're being mean, or it can feel like you're hurting a person's feelings. Like when Andrew said, I need you to go home. Sometimes if you're not used to being that clear and direct, you might be like, oh my God, they're going to be mad at me. But if you don't hear those words, you might think Andrew's going to go to bed, but I can still stay in his house. So sometimes it really is kindness to be that direct and tell people exactly what you need them to do. Like you can say it nicely. I'm going to bed. I've had a good time. I need you to go home. I have a long day tomorrow. So that is a skill. That is definitely a skill, and we can teach that to our clients. And I think we can teach that to ourselves. That being clear is being kind. And sometimes if you don't say that, I'm not interested in going on a date with you, but I would like to be friends, can feel mean. But sometimes if you don't say that, the person might still think that they have a chance at dating you, or that they can still stay in your house while you go to bed. It's not easy to do. Definitely is a skill to learn and to practice. Seneca. Okay, let's see what Seneca had to say. I would let them know I am comfortable with where we are and I don't want to ruin the relationship we already built, but I would like to remain friends. Okay, that's clear. That's assertive. So I would challenge you to try being assertive, clear, and direct yourself, and also teaching that skill to your clients. It comes in handy. So why is it important? It helps you to practice your own self-care. It helps prevent problems down the road. If I'm not clear today, I might find myself in a problem 2 weeks from now when this person won't leave my house. Or maybe that person thinks they're going to ask me out on a date again, and I didn't solve that problem 2 weeks ago, and I'm in that same problem today. It helps to communicate your needs in a relationship. It helps to make time and space for positive interactions. Maybe that helps me to have a better friendship with that person, helps me to go to bed and take care of myself, get the rest that I need so I can have a good day at work tomorrow. So it serves a lot of positive functions in a lot of different areas. Does anybody want to say anything else? Anybody have any positive or just experiences they want to share at all about boundaries before we go and learn even more, go more in depth into boundaries and learn about different types of boundaries? This is not easy stuff. This can be difficult if you've not done it before. Okay, so once your client, has learned what a boundary is, maybe has learned how to be more assertive, they may be ready to learn about the different types and maybe learn some more about themselves, that there are different types of boundaries. And this is handout 8.2. They may learn some more about themselves and find out that maybe they have too rigid of boundaries and they don't let people in. They're not learning, people aren't learning about themselves, they're not learning about others. People don't know about them, they don't know about others, and they're just like the picture on the left, people are staying out of their life. They may also learn that they have porous boundaries. They let almost anyone get close to them. Maybe they're sharing too much information, or they're sharing maybe even too much money or too much of their personal items. Maybe they give everything to their roommate, or their roommate takes advantage of them. They're having porous boundaries. And then they maybe need to learn to have healthy boundaries where they're comfortable with the amount of information, amount of themselves that they're sharing, and then they're comfortable with the boundaries that they are establishing. They're selective about whom to let in and whom to keep out. They don't feel remorse about setting boundaries. So just kind of break down a little bit here what that looks like. Rigid boundaries are when keep most people at a distance, untrusting, guarded, don't tell anybody any personal information. They may say no most of the time. They feel detached from other people's problems, ignore other people, avoid conflict, just push other people away, inflexible personal values, and they come off aggressive. If you remember other classes that we've had, that aggressive communication is their communication style, most likely, if they have rigid boundaries. They don't care about others, just concerned about themselves. Characterized by inflexible rules, like it's my way or the highway, that they apply strictly. They don't think about the context. They don't make any exceptions to those rules. They're not thinking about other people's needs. They only think of themselves, kind of close themselves off. Not any personal growth really going on when it comes to rigid boundaries. They may not have any friendships, intimacy, just distant relationships, few friends, you guys get the idea. They keep their own problems to themselves. They're not asking other people for advice. Complete other end of the spectrum, like I kind of already described, porous boundaries. Those are the oversharers. They let almost anyone get close to them. Overly trusting, even strangers. These are the people that probably come up to you in the grocery store and tell you their life story. Difficulty saying no. They always say yes. They're overly involved. Maybe they're gossiping. Quick to adopt other people's opinions. Avoid conflict by just giving in. Whatever you want to do is fine. They don't assert their own personal values. And if you remember, again, back to other weeks, they're communicating more passively. Just whatever the other person wants, they give into it. Too involved and enmeshed with others, maybe have a more dependent personality style, having feelings of anxiety, burnt out on trying to please everyone. Like we already said, have trouble saying no. Kind of looks like that open door. Everyone is welcome in, no privacy, people pleasing. We've already kind of talked about that, oversharing. No emotional boundaries, nothing to themselves. Okay, I think we got it covered there. But what we're aiming for is a middle ground. We can be in the middle and have healthy boundaries, that we think ahead of time who we're going to tell things to, who we're going to let in and out. We take time to build trust. We take time to get to know people. We share personal information when it's appropriate, in appropriate situations, at appropriate times. We're able to say no when we need to. We can support others without becoming overly involved. We take into consideration other people's opinions. We realize conflict is just a normal part of life. We know what our personal values are. We can stand by them, but we're also flexible and we can adapt to situations. And we communicate assertively. It's that I need you to leave because I need to go to bed. I enjoyed our time together. I have a long day tomorrow. It's that type of statement. Healthy boundaries are balanced. They're clear about what my values are. They know what they are willing to compromise on and what they're not willing to compromise on. They can adapt and be flexible. So when it comes to your clients, we need to help them learn to communicate assertively. They know when to say no without feeling guilty and can also accept no from others as an answer. That's also an important part of healthy boundaries. Again, this is kind of repetitive. I apologize. They share information appropriately with others. They don't just tell their life story to the first person that they meet. They exercise some restraint. But what this really comes from, and we've talked about self-esteem in previous classes, it comes from a strong self-esteem and confidence in their personal abilities and values, to help them recognize their own mistakes and then make those boundaries, and be flexible with them when they need to. So hopefully that's a good overview of that handout 8.2. Let's have a quick discussion. We have 2 questions here. You can answer one or both. How have you, or how could you help somebody to work on improving their boundaries? And have you done this? Is this something that you've already involved your clients in, is working on their boundaries? So either one of those questions. Have you already done it? How could you support your clients to do that? You can either unmute and share, or please feel free to put it in the chat. Either way is fine. And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat here. Kirsten has done it before. Oh, okay. So some sexual, it sounds like, was it some sexual boundaries that were being crossed? Would you mind talking a little bit more about that, Kirsten? How did you go about, because that's a kind of sensitive, obviously private topic. How did you bring that up and how did you work on that?
The social worker asked me to talk to her about it.
Okay.
And it was just like she was grabbing people's private parts and was wanting the attention. So we tried like different smoking breaks. We've tried different things to help her. And we just like we'd hang signs up in her room to tell her that we do not touch any other residents. And it came to a point where they were going to have to kick her out because
Oh, wow.
so many people were reporting her touching them, touching
wow.
just not men, it was females too.
Oh, wow. Okay. And were those approaches helpful? Did she get kicked out?
No, she didn't get kicked out, but she learned very quickly that she had no other place to go.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I have one. I have done it
Yeah.
before too.
Okay.
I have a client who also likes to touch people, very touchy. Sometimes he tries to touch myself as well. So what I do is I always tell him, like, keep your hands to yourself, and also I put him like, we call it 5-finger candles. So whenever he does it, and I make him do like blow his fingers, 10 of them, and he does it. I'm like, okay, now keep your hands to yourself. He does it. It works. But like I constantly have to remind him of the boundaries of like not touching people to keep himself hands to himself.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great point. This is not something you just do one time for 30 minutes. This is something that a lot of people may need every time that you meet with them, or definitely more than once. So that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. There's a couple in the chat. Let's see. Andrew says, I have a client who asks staff and peers for vending machine money. I have to remind her of the boundary. Okay. Seneca says, I have asked my client to make a list of things other individuals were doing that they thought were crossing their boundaries. Okay. We implemented steps and short-term goals to complete these boundaries. Okay. Samantha, I have had to use the boundary contract. Okay. I want to hear more about that. Samantha, what's a boundary contract? What does that look like? If you don't mind sharing.
We have one in the OneDrive, and it's a contract, and you have them sign it. I was at a facility with mainly men, and they were all trying to like grab my pant leg, and it was just kind of uncomfortable.
Okay.
So I had to remind them of their boundaries of we don't touch other people.
Okay. Did you find that helped?
It did.
Okay. Was there some like education first as far as defining what a boundary is, why they're in place, along with the contract? Okay.
They knew more about boundaries just because they've been told before by numerous people.
Yeah, I'm sure that wasn't the first time, but sometimes, you know, having it brought up, you know, in session, like officially, you know, how does it affect you can be helpful too as well, versus, you know, we don't do that. Sounds like you were able to address it in a professional, but also, you know, I'm a human being, I'm a person, you know, kind of way. Okay.
And just to add on to the boundaries
Yeah.
contract,
Yeah.
so it covers a variety of stuff. So it includes like physical contact, inappropriate language, or like cussing,
Okay.
anything like that. And you can add other stuff too. It just has the very basic like rules for sessions essentially.
Oh, maybe we'll add that actually. I was not aware of that. Maybe we'll look into adding that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. Jessica says practicing I statements and effective communication, role modeling in session to build confidence to implement on their own. Must first establish what type of boundary style they currently have. I would agree with that. Awesome. Very good. And then Madeline also mentioned the boundary contract too. Advocating for others when they let you know their wishes. And then she's also used the boundary contract. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. I learned something new today. Very good. Very, very good. Okay. Okay, let's keep going so we cover everything today and also have time for the final. So it's normal for boundaries to shift and change as clients get more comfortable in their relationships. They may be not okay with something in the beginning of a relationship, friendship, and then it may be okay down the line, or vice versa. So you may also want to educate, you know, your client on it's okay if boundaries change, and then they may just need to communicate if it changes. So that's okay. It's okay to speak up if they change their mind. So just going along with that, just helping them to recognize as their need changes and to communicate that in a similar way that we have been talking about thus far: clear, concise, and unapologetic. So the same skills, being assertive can help them to communicate boundaries even if they change over time, and that's their right. So that is the first topic about education and training, is about boundaries. We also sent you a couple other handouts on educating clients on their diagnosis. And I think some of you already mentioned that. So this should be a refresher of something that you're already doing. So maybe just different handouts. But I just wanted to, this isn't even on the slide, but I just wanted to see in what other ways, because I know we give you guys a lot of handouts, but I also keep telling you about learning styles. So besides handouts, what other ways do you communicate and educate and train and provide psychoeducation to clients about what their diagnosis is? What other approaches have you used to do that? I'm just curious. What has worked? What have you found to be effective? Oh, we have something in the chat. Samantha, videos, mental health websites, therapist aid. Yes, love therapist aid. Yeah, so therapist aid, besides worksheets, yes, they do have videos. They do have other resources. They have audio clips as well for like relaxation. They do have other things besides just worksheets. Very good. Okay, and if you guys can remember the specific websites, please feel free. Go ahead, drop those in the chat. I was really hoping today would be, like I said, a sharing of information. So if you can remember any of those websites, please feel free to share those amongst yourself. I'm looking to update some of this curriculum to be more to what is actually taking place in your facilities, or what is taking place in your guys' homes that you're providing services to. So we'll just go through these just as some additional resources. So mental health education provides your clients with necessary awareness, or if you are providing education and training to your clients' loved ones or other people on their treatment team, that could also be something that is occurring as well. Somebody also mentioned normalizing that they're not the only one with this diagnosis. That could be very comforting to somebody to realize this that I'm experiencing, this feeling has a name. Number one, it's a thing, it's a condition. It has a name to it. And also there are other people out there also experiencing similar symptoms. It may not be the same exact experience, because everybody's experience of a diagnosis is different, but there are other people out there who are having a similar experience. It can be really comforting is the best word I can use to explain as we normalize it. So really, psychoeducation is the informational part of mental health education. And not only is it teaching them what their diagnosis is and kind of the statistics and the information about their symptoms, but you could also educate on risk factors. Does their diagnosis put them at a risk of other conditions or other things that they need to be aware of? That could also be part of psychoeducation. Other parts of psychoeducation are helping them to understand what resources are available, are there support groups, what could we link them with? So kind of education and training also goes along with coordination or linking with other services. People do really feel more empowered. So that's our last topic, actually. Topic 10 is empowered when they are fully educated on their mental health diagnosis. I think it also increases their involvement in their services when they really understand their diagnosis as well. Client education can also help you know what is going on with these different diagnoses and symptoms, and then remind clients of ways to manage their care and to manage their diagnosis and their symptoms. Better education can help clients understand what is most appropriate for their diagnosis, hopefully avoiding maybe unnecessary trips to the hospital, further traumatizing them possibly. So a couple items that were sent to you. One of them is about anxiety. This is just a screenshot here that you may want to use to kind of remind how you may educate a client on signs and symptoms of anxiety. Using plain language, don't use maybe the words that are in the DSM. use just plain everyday language, or even use the words that your client is using. A lot of you have mentioned, your client is probably not going to come to you and say, I'm experiencing depression, I'm experiencing social withdrawal, I'm experiencing the symptoms that are listed in the DSM. They may, I'm not feeling good, or I'm not feeling like being with people today. Those are the words that they may be using. So use maybe their own words. But here are some plain language words that you see here on the screen. Feelings of dread, apprehension is anxiety, tension, worry. Could also be manifesting, mentally, physically. Could be manifesting in multiple ways. Also could be about a particular event that's coming up that we don't know the outcome about, maybe a doctor's appointment that's coming up, or other mental health struggles. Could also be experienced in short bursts or over a long period of time. Again, if these are not going to make sense to your client, please use words that will make sense to them. Could be physical, could be mental. Trouble sleeping, stomach problems, difficulty concentrating. It could show up in many different ways. So we do have this handout that we provided to you that may be helpful as you're educating your client. Again, not just what are the symptoms, but the different types, and then what makes it grow. We have this anxiety cycle. So this is also educating them on like behavior that goes with symptom. Behavior that goes along with anxiety. What makes it worse? That they may actually be doing, thinking they're helping themselves, when actually they're making their anxiety worse. When people have anxiety, they avoid the thing that they are scared of, or the thing that is making their anxiety worse, thinking it's going to help them feel better, when actually the more they avoid it, the worse their anxiety is going to get. It feels and it gets even scarier to them. So for example, if they were in a car accident on a particular street and they avoid going down that street, it provides temporary relief to avoid going down that street. But the more and more they avoid it, the more scary it gets, the more it gets built up in their mind that it is scary. Maybe pictures would help your clients. So here's some pictures of things that are depicting social withdrawal, depicting, that heart, racing heart that could be that they're experiencing, irrational fears, recurring nightmares. Maybe use pictures to get those symptoms across. So you guys, I think we're putting some resources in the chat. I saw a whole bunch of things pop up here. So there are some listed here in the chat. We also have some on this slide here. So everybody will get the PDF of the slide. So you'll have mental health education websites listed here for you. This is mentalhealthliteracy.org. We'll have a couple screenshots coming up here that you may use for yourself to become more educated yourself on different diagnoses. But then you could also use these same mental health education websites with your clients. So you can choose different mental health disorders. The website will open up a list of questions that you can then use to educate you, or you could use to educate your client on these different diagnoses. And here's some more screenshots. Again, it is mentalhealthliteracy.org. Couple more screenshots here. Okay, so I think that's all the handouts that we provided for you today. Any questions, comments before we go on to our example documentation here? And then I do want to leave a few minutes again for the final discussion. Okay, all right, just real quick. So the intervention of the week is education training. So the okay response, if the client participated, engaged, and demonstrated a skill, is the test client was engaged during session in learning more about her mental health diagnosis. It sounds like we provided psychoeducation. A little bit better, a little bit more information is the second one. Test client accepted education from writer on learning more about her mental health diagnosis. Test client agreed she would want to learn more on how to navigate the mental health website so she can learn about her symptoms more independently. Test client agreed that she knows what her calming coping skills are, but needed some assistance on remembering to utilize them when she needs to. What would you add to make this second note even better? What's missing? What could take this to the next level? Either in the chat or you can unmute. Oh, I got some things in the chat. Specify, yes, everybody's saying, what is her diagnosis? It is not stated, it just says mental health diagnosis. What is it exactly? We're talking about calming coping skills, about what calming coping skills, and for what symptoms. I think we need to know that. Okay, something else in the chat. Make the interventions more specific. Somebody else also says what website. That would be helpful to know as well. Okay, great job. Excellent. All right, our homework. The OK homework test client will continue to accept education on her diagnosis. A little bit better. Excuse me. Test client will continue to work on learning how to navigate the mental health website to continue to learn more about her mental health diagnosis and related signs or symptoms. What would be even better than that second one? What would take that to the next level? Oh, a bunch of things in the chat. Okay, great. Frequency. Okay. How often is she going to go to this website? Yep, we need numbers. In what time frame? Yep. Over the next week, over the next day. How often is she going to be doing this? Okay. And again, what diagnosis? What symptoms are we talking about? Okay, very good. You guys get it. Excellent. All right, so we have a couple minutes to just one more time. Either if you have any lingering questions about education and training, we certainly have a few minutes to address those. And or just one more time, you have 2 weeks to get ready for a final. Instead of an exam, you're turning in 5 of your progress notes for clients that you provided services for, again, within either Series 1 or Series 2. We're looking for your best notes. So go through either Series 1 or Series 2 notes for your absolute best ones. We need 5 different interventions over the 5 different notes. And when you have your form, you'll be able to state, this one is ongoing assessment of needs, and then you'll attach that one. This one is achieving independence, and then you'll attach that one. So the form will really walk you through making sure that you have 5 different notes. So any questions on the final?
When are we gonna get that form then?
You should be getting it in the next week. You'll get the
Oh,
invite.
okay.
You should get the invite today, and then within the next week, you'll be getting the form. It's similar to the form that you use when you take your quiz. It's the same question format and the same way that you attach the progress note to your form. It's the same similar form outline. But you could certainly start looking through, and I would recommend that you start looking through your notes to find your best notes from Series 1 or Series 2.
So then needs to be then old notes, but you cannot make them better then.
Yes, so from either Series 1 or Series 2 that you have not submitted before, because we want to give you new feedback on things that haven't been graded. But you could, if you wanted to give a note from week 8, week 9, week 10, you could also do that as well. I just would not wait until Sunday or Monday before the final to start going through all of your notes to find 5. It's probably going to take you a minute to find them all. Plus you have to do week 10 homework and turn that all in at the same time. Oh, something in the chat. Oh, maybe not. Thought there was something in the chat. Oh, sorry, Brittany. If you don't remember the exact dates of series 1, is that okay? I can look it up for you. I can let you know when you were in series 1. If you're not sure, email me and I'll look up when you were in series 1. I can tell you. No problem. I know. We've offered series 1 and series 2 so many times. I could look it up. We have all the old rosters and everything. Okay, if there's no other questions, I will stay on for a few minutes. If you would rather speak one-on-one, that's fine, or you can email me. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you guys all next Tuesday.